You know, Republicans used to believe that not prosecuting criminals led to more crime. The answer here is take the politics out of the decision, and in this case, proceed with the prosecution and do the same for anybody else who does anything even remotely like it. Just read the indictment and ask yourself, if the government can prove what they allege here, shouldn't this man go to jail? The simple fact he had the documents, for any reason or no reason, should subject him to prosecution.
John Bolton is in some very serious trouble. Joining me now, Miranda Devine, host of the wonderful Pod Force One podcast, of course, New York Post. All right, Miranda, how much trouble is John Bolton actually in? I know I'm biased. I want to see him go to prison, but I also don't want to blow smoke. Is he in bad trouble?
Hi, Jesse. I think he is. I mean, what we've seen so far in the indictment is, and also just evidence that's out there, is that he kept classified information and he was emailing it to two members of his family. And this was at a time when he was being hacked by the Iranians and when he was being questioned by law enforcement or intelligence people about what the Iranians might have hacked into. Apparently, he didn't mention that he'd been using this classified information and emailing it in an insecure manner. So that's pretty serious. And, judging by his own metrics of justice, he should go to jail for a very long time. I'm sorry to sort of say that because John Bolton previously, until he was always a neocon and a warmonger, but he was on the Republican side. And really until he joined Donald Trump and was an abject failure and then became a never Trumper, I would never have wanted to say such a thing. But now he's proved himself to be really Trump deranged. And that really, I guess, has nothing to do with his guilt or otherwise. But the fact is it sort of mutes any sympathy I might have for him.
Miranda, can you help me? Can you help us, everybody, understand why do these people do this? This seems to be so unbelievably common with these people who have access to national security secrets. They not only take them home, they share them. They're emailing them. What do they get out of this? Why are they doing this?
Well, to be fair, I think that there is an argument that the government has overclassified material. And so maybe some of this stuff isn't really vital to national security. But there's also just an arrogance with people like John Bolton and like Joe Biden is another one who, he would have been pinged for illegally maintaining classified material, removing it from where it should have been, way back to his Senate days. And the only reason he got off scot-free was because the special counsel said that no jury would find him guilty because they would see him as an elderly man with a poor memory. And so I think there's arrogance. And I also think there's ulterior motives. That classified information is worth a lot of money. It's worth trading for. And so in John Bolton's case, he was writing a book. He wanted to, I guess, use that information to refresh his memory. And in Joe Biden's case, he also was having a ghostwriter write his book. And he famously on tape said to the ghostwriter, I think I've got that classified material right here. And also, there's no proof of this, but since he was in bed and his family was making lots of money from the Chinese and other Russians, Ukrainians, various nefarious characters around the world, any classified information would be very worthwhile to America's adversaries.
Miranda, speaking of Joe Biden, what's this Joe Biden CIA cover-up story? Because it sure sounds like a really, really big deal.
Which one?
The That it's so sad that you even have to ask that clarifying question. So dirty, so corrupt. I mean, pick your government agency. We have to decide which particular scandal we're talking about was covering up for Joe Biden. I'm, of course, talking about the most recent one where it sounds like Joe Biden ordered the Central Intelligence Agency to drop looking into him.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was an ongoing motive of his vice presidency, and I wrote a whole book about it. It was the CIA, the FBI. In this case, he wanted this information about the Ukrainians had been talking about how Joe Biden was coming into Kiev and lecturing them about corruption, saying corruption is a cancer, when his own son was on the board of Burisma. And there was a spy or a source that the CIA was informed by, that there was a lot of consternation in Ukraine, that they were angry about this, that the people close to the then President Poroshenko, Petro Poroshenko, didn't like the fact that Joe Biden was jetting into town telling them what to do about corruption and not helping them at all. And then basically, it was the vice president's office, his national security advisor, who said, we now have an email that shows that he said, oh, please redact that from the president's daily brief. So it never went into circulation like it should have. And therefore, America's national security interests were harmed because there were lots of people who were doing business with Ukraine from the government at that time who should have been aware of these negative feelings from Poroshenko and his inner circle towards Joe Biden. I mean, it seems obvious now. It should have really been obvious to them at the time, but to censor that is shocking. But there's lots of glimpses into the CIA covering up for Joe Biden. In one example, more recently, the IRS whistleblowers, then IRS investigators, Gary Shapley and Joe Ziegler, wanted to interview Hunter Biden's sugar brother, Kevin Morris, the Hollywood lawyer who funded him to the tune of at least $7 million, paying off his tax bills and funding his lavish lifestyle in California. So they wanted to interview Kevin Morris. Obviously, he was a material person. And they were told by prosecutors that Langley, CIA headquarters, had summoned the prosecutors and said, hands off Kevin Morris. You can't even question him. So it's a big mystery about Joe Biden and why his family's influence peddling was being protected, encouraged, maybe even, certainly covered up by the CIA, the FBI, the State Department, you name it.
Miranda, talk to me about Hunter Biden's shrink, because you just sat down with him on Pod Force One. That had to be frightening, honestly. I was going to say fascinating. That had to be horrifying.
Look, Dr. Keith Ablow, is a very interesting man. He was Hunter Biden's former shrink, as you say. He's ethical, so he's not discussing with us the secrets of the shrink couch, but he certainly was able to sort of diagnose and talk about the things that we know publicly about Hunter Biden, and so without divulging secrets. And, it does go back to what I've always thought, I mean, with some sympathy towards Hunter Biden, that his mother and little sister, baby sister, were killed in a car crash where he and his older brother, Beau, were in the back seat. He was only 2 and his brother was 3. And that was a very traumatic moment for him to be stuck in that car. Then he was recovering in hospital, he and his brother, for many months after that. And Joe Biden famously got sworn in as a senator by their bedside, which was a very heart-rending photograph to go all around the world. But if you zoom back a bit, you wonder, why does the father bring the world's media into his son's hospital room. They've just lost their mother. They're bandaged and wan, and he could have done it out in the corridor, but he has all these photographers and small rooms crammed in, journalists crammed into this room, completely unnecessary. And that sort of set the tune for his sort of fake Father of the Year routine that he did from then on. And I think he was not a good father, and certainly not to Hunter. And a lot of Hunter's problems, I think, come from that, because there's a real love-hate relationship. And it was interesting what Dr. Abloh said about Hunter's abandoning all these laptops around the time that his father was announcing that he was running for president yet again in April of 2019. Within weeks of that date, Hunter Biden had abandoned famously the laptop that we ended up looking into from Delaware that was dropped off. Hunter dropped off at the laptop repair shop around the corner from his house in Wilmington. But there was another laptop that not many people know about that around the same time Hunter abandoned at the Newburyport, Massachusetts home or guest house of Dr. Keith Abloh. Hunter was up there doing a sort of a drug detox thing with ketamine, unusual therapy. That's where those famous photographs come from, where Hunter is sort of squatting in this sort of sensory deprivation chamber, supposedly to get off drugs, but he's smoking crack and drinking vodka. So anyway, that was Dr. Keith Abloh's place, and Hunter left his laptop behind, and Dr. Abloh called him repeatedly and texted him and said, come and get your stuff. And it was not just the laptop, but a whole lot of very expensive clothing and other personal effects. And Hunter just never picked it up and never answered. So Keith Abloh sort of surmises from a psychiatric point of view that yes, that could be kind of a Freudian situation where Hunter kind of wanted to jettison. Well, my theory was that he wanted to actually damage his father's candidacy, because he didn't want his father putting the whole family through that again. But Keith Abloh said also to basically jettison his past. He never really wanted to be part of his father's political life. And so this was a sort of a symbolic or psychological way of just getting rid of his entire life and starting afresh. And as we know, Hunter did start afresh. He went to California. He met his now wife, got married within a few weeks, and became an artist.
Oh. Miranda, thank you, ma'am. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.